I'll start off by officially revising my score of Dirt to a playlist, because half the album's on that shit. And second, I want to say there's a case to be made for Facelift to be the better record.
Nah.
I mentioned in that review that you can't really narrow down the genius of Alice in Chains into just calling it grunge, because there's so much more and frankly, so much better. Due to their far superior musicianship compared to most of their peers and the talent of not just the late, great Layne Staley, but especially Jerry Cantrell, who I feel, and I'll probably get assassinated for this, maybe not in this video, is a better songwriter than Kurt Cobain.
Wow.
Oh, how the fuck can you say that? He wrote this song and that, he's the icon, a music legend. Yeah, all that shit is true, right? But here's how I basically break that down. I like Alice in Chains songs more than Nirvana songs. Period, end of story.
No, I think Kurt is a better songwriter. I think Jerry is a better musician, and I think Jerry brings a lot more to the table in terms of showmanship and also skill and structure.
And a big factor in that is his diverse musical background. Not only were he and Layne and the rest of the band big fans of Elton John, that's why you hear so many harmonies.
This guy's from a country across the ocean that I'll probably never meet, but he makes me feel. I had a realization at a very young age of like, okay, that's what I want to do.
Jerry grew up listening to country music through both of his parents that were really into that genre. There was plenty of that fusion on this record. Without further bovine excrement, I'm Darius King.
And I'm Metalhead.
We die young.
It's also Die Young is Black Sabbath.
Whoa, yes. One of the reasons I say that this album could be potentially the better record over Dirt is because of the lyrical subjects. While Dirt had very strong lyrical subjects as well, this one being about the band witnessing 10-year-old kids dealing drugs on the streets and thinking these kids are gonna die young, I think speaks to a lot more people, as opposed to many of the addiction-themed subjects of Dirt. Jerry with the most brutal drop D flat riff. He must have used bridge cables for these records, because I was flopping all over the place when I was trying to play that for the intro.
I especially loved the mix for this song. I thought it was excellent, especially in the low end.
Yeah, especially for a debut.
Especially for a debut. The chugging riff is just really what gets me going for most of it. Staley is just perfect at projecting everything you want to hear.
Layne joins him in dialing up the aggression, channeling the inner James Hetfield. Watch where you stand! Yeah, yeah!
Why did you throw that at me? I thought you what? You guys want to throw shit?
Everyone constantly nuts all over Layne's performance in Man in a Box, and rightfully so, but this one might be my favorite Layne performance on the record. He keeps that B-flat energy throughout the entire duration of this one. Another reason Alice in Chains is my favorite grunge band is because of Jerry's solos. The solos are excellent, but I love where he inserts them into the songs too. They're not something you typically hear from popular music. You honestly don't really hear much grunge in their discography up until their self-titled album, of course, which you guys highly recommended that I check out. And I actually really did enjoy that record, especially the closer Over Now. Scorcher starred this record, and one of the best on it. This one's going on the playlist.
The seal of approval.
Alright, let's give this a shot. Not quite yet.
Hope nobody's home.
Continuing with the fucking brilliant song subjects on this album, Layne pulling out the crystal ball and predicting government censorship in the 2020s. You thought they locked you in your home and fed you propaganda back then, imagine what he'd write today.
Oh my god. This one is definitely one of my all-time favorites. That slow, chugged riff just keeps you headbanging. Layne Staley just gives the performance of a lifetime. I watched videos of him playing this live. Oh my gosh. You could like hear him over the microphone.
Yeah, the song is really the Layne show. Jerry, Sean, and Mike do a great job playing a supporting role, but from the powerful, distinct vocal style that got him so much attention back in the day, to the brilliant song subjects, Layne puts the band on his back. I've been training my voice for when we start eventually writing music, and being as Layne is one of my central influences, this song in that B-flat is like the ultimate checkpoint. Jerry having a stellar voice too, and adding in those Elton John harmonies makes this one that much more of a barn burner. This one is also going on the playlist.
It's going on the playlist.
As a should that be flat? As I mentioned earlier, the band's influence from other genres adds such an interesting dynamic to this record. Sean's electro piano and Jerry's style adds a nice blues fusion in there.
This is the worst song on the album. Not only did Lars Ulrich come into the studio for this song, extremely repetitive, boring, unimaginable. The only uplifting part and savior for this is the vocal harmonies that are mixed and done so well.
Alright, let me absolutely contradict you. Sean's drumming stood out the most here, throwing the accents on the bells and blocks. Absolutely love that shit. Really, the whole band is in lockstep here, creating such a solid foundation during the vocal harmonies and the solo. Lyrically not as strong with a couple awkward lines here and there. Nonetheless, a solid one. This one gets the seal of approval.
This one gets a Y.
Loving the mood shifts on this one. From the build up to the powerful hook to the palm mute sections that build tension and take you on a wild ride. You can really hear the dynamics in Jerry's voice during the answering lines in the verses. Those smoother, softer sections that really do it for me. Pretty standard Alice in Chains song, but man did they put on a show when they did this live. Seal of approval.
Well thought out, well structured.
I wouldn't push you out of a moving car.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. And we all know we're in for a ride when Jerry pulls out the acoustic. Which is funny considering his reaction to getting his first acoustic.
Kids make the Christmas list of what you want, and I cut out a picture of a Les Paul, and I wrote above it, "This is all I want." I remember Christmas came, and I opened it up, and it was an acoustic guitar, and I was so bummed. I'm like, I wanted a Les Paul!
You can't blame the dead, that's an expensive guitar. This is the Alice in Chains that I love. The thunderous bass backing up those beautiful clean chords.
I really enjoyed the haunting tone to this one and the communication between Jerry and Lane on the hook. Consistently delivering banger after banger here. That's why I'm keeping it consistent. Seal of approval.
Everything molds so well together, so this one is on my playlist.
Speaking of playlist, love, hate, love. Keeping the haunting vibes going here. Jerry with the sexy flange tone and the assist from Sean. And Jerry's dissonant power chords are brilliant over the verses. One of the more in-depth ones on this record. Sean is the heart and soul while the rest of the band adds in really nice accents. One of my favorites on the record. This one is going on my playlist.
Nice. This song has its high points with the well-structured guitar parts, especially the outro that I love very much. The song itself, I feel, suffers from repetitiveness and overall just kind of boring. You don't have to worry about your seatbelt.
One of the catchier riffs in the album, it sounds like to my ears that Jerry's incorporating some of that acoustic technique with a back scrape and then going into that main riff, which surprisingly sounds good with distortion.
Good mix, but I'm gonna go with the Formula.
Yeah, I actually put Formula on this one too, but they still put on a show. So this one is, you guessed it, seal of approval.
I don't even have to say it.
Jerry's
Yeah.
country roots on full display here. And what a beautiful spot for it too, as a tribute to his mother who was a big fan of country music. And then Lane said, Mother! I also love how it's a more upbeat, positive track as opposed to the really somber tributes that we typically hear. Even though I'm not a big fan of country music, this fusion that they create here with Lane's twangy voice that he's so iconic for is unlike any other fusion of these genres that I've heard. Going on the playlist.
This one I thought was another standout. Seal of approval.
Some of those country roots spill over into this track too, with Jerry turning a Ford Truck Month riff into a metal slugfest with that high gain tone.
The main riff is infectious as hell. Lane Staley blasts right through my headphones into my eardrums.
Definitely sticking to the formula that works here, but still the performances were top notch. Seal of approval.
Seal of approval.
Jerry's flange slowed down arpeggios and Lane's sleepier melody is one of the most depressing and hardcore lullabies that I've ever heard. And then Good Morning.
I like the different take on the riffs, slower pace from what we've heard. The emotion I thought was more in front on the sleeve.
Take a guess.
Seal?
Yes, sir.
Me too.
Yes, sir. This one kind of sounds like transition music for a 2000 sitcom. Pulling out another genre, getting funky as fuck. And unsurprisingly, as a result, this is Mike Starr's best performance on the record. Another brilliant example of what sets Alice in Chains apart from their peers, and who else brings the uniqueness to the table of cutting your strings for a solo, other than Jerry Cantrell. Maybe Herman Lee. This one's going on the playlist.
Wow. This one is middle of the road.
Lane getting in on the fusion here, delivering some really bluesy vocal lines like something you might hear from Robert Plant. It's almost waiting for Dave to come out and say, Homila bibbila zibbila butt. I'm a goofy goober! Rhythmically strong one. Drum roll, please. Seal of approval.
Middle of the road.
Overall, one of the best parts about listening to a debut album is you really get to hear everything the band has to offer as they're experimenting like crazy. I praise Dirt for its wide range as well too, but with the fusion that they insert into here from different genres, this one's looking like the Rocky Mountains.
It is a incredibly strong debut, even from the mix, the production, to the riffs. Dirt had a lot of throwaway songs that were like actually throwaway, like I would throw in a trash can the first chance I got. But on Facelift, even the songs I could care less about, they were still structured enough.
I'd say, as of right now, I do like this one more than Dirt. It's kind of like what I said with Metallica's Ride the Lightning versus Master of Puppets. I think Master of Puppets has much better songs, or in this case, Dirt. Songs like Wood, Them Bones, Down in a Hole, Rooster, all nut button worthy. But there are also some songs on there that I cannot stand, like Godsmack and Sickman and whatever the fuck that Iron Man thing was. But on this album, there's not a single dull spot. Every song just makes the album better, and on top of that, how seamlessly each track flows into the next one. Just as an album experience, I feel like this one is superior. And this one is going on my playlist.
Lane Staley and Jerry Cantrell really shine through with their vocal harmonies to just their overall performances. For 1990 and debut, this was definitely a success. So this one gets the seal of approval.
Yes, sir.
I love Rush too, but face it, chicks don't, all right? It took me longer to get my first wife to go to a Rush concert than it did to try anal.